Good evening, good evening, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? Thanks for joining in. Talking Dogs live here on YouTube from the comfort of my own room here in Choctaw County, Mississippi. As always, thank you guys for coming in here, joining us. Should have a pretty good crowd in here tonight. I think there's a lot of interest to talk about what's going on with Mississippi State athletics as we enter week 8 or 9, I think, of the season. I forget exactly what week it is at this point, but Mississippi State's getting set to come off a bye week, a much needed bye week where Mississippi State was able to get some needed rest for a lot of guys that were healing up. And I think that the Bulldogs are going to be ready for the challenges ahead in the back half of the schedule in the final 4 games that starts with a 3-game homestand for the Bulldogs with Auburn, Georgia, and then East Tennessee State, and ends with a huge matchup with Ole Miss. Got to come out of these first three, 2-1, go into that Ole Miss game, have a chance for 8 wins. That's going to be of the utmost importance. Mississippi State will be going into those games without its athletic director. Scott Strickland leaves Mississippi State in 2016. John Cohen steps in, and since that point, John Cohen, the former baseball coach of Mississippi State, has been the Bulldogs athletic director. And here we are in 2022. And if you would have told me in 2016, before he was hired as AD, that one day he would be leaving Mississippi State for Auburn to be their athletic director, I probably would have laughed at you. But here we are. Shocking news, quite frankly, late last week. I think it was Saturday when this stuff started surfacing for the Bulldogs, that John Cohen was a major candidate for Auburn to become their new athletic director. And a couple of days later, John Cohen is named Auburn's new athletic director. A pretty big surprise. They had missed out on a couple of top targets over the last few days, and John Cohen was a guy that emerged as one of the leaders there, and an alum of Mississippi State. Back-to-back athletic directors from Mississippi State leave the Bulldogs to go to another school in the SEC. Strickland goes to Florida. Cohen goes to Auburn. And to me, I wrote about this in a column the other day. It's pretty much business. I mean, these guys, the loyalty factor no longer really exists in college athletics and really athletics across the board. It's not about loyalty. It's about business. And these guys are doing what they feel like is best for their families. It's not a Mississippi State loyalty thing. I mean, you can no longer bank on someone that is one of your own staying at your school forever. It's just not going to happen. There were a lot of things reported that have really rubbed some people the wrong way. I don't think it was the right way to do things if John Cohen is indeed behind it. And first and foremost, that thing really, the big elephant in the room is the topic of conversation of NIL. Auburn has a lot of NIL money put aside. Is basically, what's been reported. And it was reported by Ross Dellinger. I've heard this as well, that one of the reasons John Cohen left was because of Auburn's NIL opportunities opposed to Mississippi State's. It was reported Mississippi State has not raised $1 million in NIL funds. I've checked on that. That is completely false. I think that was changed in Ross's article. And I don't think that Ross just reported that blindly. I think he was told that, and it's really a shame if that's coming from Cohen's camp. That's your parting words about Mississippi State. Is you don't have the NIL opportunities here, and you're kind of dissing Mississippi State's opportunities. And we're seeing today. I talked to Charlie Winfield today, who heads up the Bulldog Initiative. Charlie's been on our message board. You can kind of follow what's going on with the Bulldog Initiative on our message board today because he's been updating that regularly. Mississippi State is approaching almost double the numbers of memberships of Bulldog Initiative in the last 2 days than it had the entire portion of the first few months of the Bulldog Initiative. That's a response from this fan base saying they're tired of that. They're tired of being crapped on. They're tired of being told that they can't do the things that other schools can do. They're tired of being told they're less than. I think Mississippi State fans are responding in a major way And they might not. This might not turn out to be, a huge thing for Mississippi State in the end, where they're competing in the top half of the league or anything as far as NIL is concerned. But I certainly think it's woken up this fan base and has gotten a lot of you guys really excited about the future of Mississippi State sports. And whether that's you're ticked off or you're excited, it's invoking some emotions out of you guys, and I think that's been really positive for Mississippi State today. And we'll see if that translates into a big crowd on Saturday. I think it'll be a solid crowd on Saturday for Auburn. I think State fans are rejuvenated here for the rest of the schedule. And I think also Mississippi State is going to be able to have in my opinion, a pretty good list of suitors for the athletic department or athletic director position. So big couple of weeks, maybe month ahead for Mississippi State to fill this position. I think there's a lot of things positive that can come from this for Mississippi State moving forward. And with that, I will go into some of your comments and we'll discuss a lot of some of the same things that I've already mentioned in here so far. All right, we'll start with Michael Starr. 2 questions, Robbie. Were you surprised that the fan reaction was pretty unified and not wanting John back? And also, were you surprised John or someone close to him trashed State on the way out? I was very surprised by that. And I've been kind of surprised that we haven't seen some kind of statement from John Cohen. It's been 2 days. This is his alma mater. He played baseball here. He coached baseball here. He was the athletic director here. This place has meant a lot to him. And I have to wonder if there's something else that's been going on behind the scenes. Maybe he's upset about something. I don't know. But something's going on because I just can't imagine John Cohen delivering those shots through media outlets and things like that. And also, I'm just really surprised we have not seen some kind of statement from him talking about, his time in Starkville and all that. I think we saw that from Scott Strickland, Dan Mullen, Vic Schaefer, guys that have left Mississippi State for what they deemed bigger and better positions. We've seen that from those people. We saw that from Todd Grantham, but we haven't seen it from John Cohen, who's been a Mississippi State guy for 2 or 3 decades. So, I mean, that's been surprising. And I think anytime you see this, especially that State fans feel like they've been slighted by somebody, and I'm speaking as a person that grew up a Mississippi State fan and has grown up in the state of Mississippi. This is a very proud state. This is a very proud fan base. And I think anytime one of us feels like we've been slighted, you have a tendency to get pretty defensive about it. And I think the reaction has been that this fan base is uniting in a major way over this. And we've seen that in the form of, like I mentioned, the Bulldog Initiative. I think you'll see that in the form of maybe attendance at games coming up this weekend. A lot of people are starting to kind of get a fire underneath them here because of this thing with John Cohen. And again, I think that Mississippi State can make a really good hire, somebody that I think could be better suited for this position in this day and age of college sports than what John Cohen was when he came in. I mean, you brought in a baseball coach with basically he had no background in fundraising. He had no background in administration or anything like that. I thought he did a good job at handling the athletic department. There were some ups and downs, obviously, but he did a really good job. Mississippi State needs to go out and get somebody that can really raise some money and make them competitive in NIL. I didn't think that was happening with John Cohen. And I think that there's somebody out there that can help you really kind of take advantage of that. Zach H. could really use one of those 40-point wins that other teams get every so often this weekend. Yeah, I mean, State's been close, but they've been really good at home. Mississippi State has been really good at home. They've scored 40-plus, I think, in every home game. They've covered every home game. And those last 3 home games they had with Bowling Green, Arkansas, and A&M, I thought they were really good. I like Mississippi State at home, and I think that they're going to win those 2 games that are sandwiched between the Georgia game, and I think they're going to compete well in that Georgia game. We'll see what happens in that game, but I'm not ready to make a upset pick on that. But I think State's playing well at home. I think that continues this weekend. And the reason I feel so confident about this weekend is Mississippi State needed that bye week as much as they've ever needed a bye week. And now I feel certain Jaden Crumity is going to make his season debut this weekend. I feel good about Dylan Johnson possibly being back. I feel really good about LaQuinston Sharp. So you have a well-rested Mississippi State team, a team that's feeling rejuvenated for the back half of the schedule. You got a chance to do some good things here in the back half. And State has got to come out, I think, and really dominate this ballgame against Auburn. This is a depleted Auburn team. They've had a ton of transfers midseason. They just lost their head coach. They have, first-time interim coach and Cadillac Williams coaching things. They've lost some staff members. This is a program in disarray right now, and State has got to stomp on them this weekend. Because we've seen this before. We've seen teams get interim coaches and they start to rally a little bit. State's got to come out and kind of take that away from them early and make sure that they don't really have a will by the end of the first half into the second half, I think. William Harden here's hoping we can put the recent events to bed and move on to taking steps to improve all things related to our teams. Yeah, I think this is a good opportunity for State to move forward here. You get some change in leadership. It's a fresh start is a lot of times really good. And I think that is what can happen for Mississippi State through all this. Oh, let's see who else we got. Bryce, the link to the message board is MississippiState.247sports.com. Of course, you can't read it unless you're a member, which, by the way, until 11 p.m. tonight, we got 75% off memberships. So check that out. Austin, Texas, hook 'em. We got a Texas fan in here? Matt White said it perfectly. Every single one of you are a sellout, and I don't respect you. I don't know who he was talking about, but he was fired up for sure. Jay in Baltimore, any of our current coaches at risk of being lured to Auburn in the next few years? I mean, there's always that opportunity because, you have that relationship with John Cohen. We saw that with Scott Strickland. He had a good relationship with Dan Mullen, and that made things fairly quick and that coaching change there. But I don't know anybody on the surface that really stands out. Football is really kind of the only thing that's kind of a draw right now, you would think. And they're not going to take Mike Leach, I don't believe. Jay, best guess on who is Auburn's next football coach? I think it's going to be Lane Kiffin. If they offer him the right money. If it's comparable to what he could make at Ole Miss, then I think he stays at Ole Miss. But the right money, I think, can lure him to Auburn. Opportunity to some people would say, well, he'd have to compete with Nick Saban. He's not going to want to do that. Ole Miss has the NIL money and all that stuff. I would say that the opportunity to compete with Nick Saban might be something that entices Lane a little bit. I think he's a lot more competitive than people think he is. So if they offer him the right money, which, I've heard some outrageous numbers in the past couple of days, if they offer him some of those contract numbers that I've read about, then I very well could see him end up in Auburn. But it's going to take some good money, I think, because Ole Miss is a really good situation for him. Their NIL situation has grown. Of course, they've been really good in the transfer portal. He's winning there. He can get into the playoffs, I think, at Ole Miss with the roster that he's starting to put together. So, he can do most of what he can do at Auburn right there at Ole Miss. I don't think they're that far apart right now. But the chance to kind of upgrade and the challenge, I think, might entice him. So I think that's probably that would be my best guess right now. And then Hugh Freeze, obviously, which is, strange, a couple of Ole Miss related coaches. But Hugh Freeze is another one that would be interesting. Which again, that would be absolutely hilarious to watch John Cohen and Hugh Freeze together. That really would be funny. Jordan, am I off base for thinking that the timing of JC's move is not a big deal? Matt White thinks it's a huge deal, but I just don't see it. Yeah, me personally, I don't see it as a big deal. I mean, they're gonna hire a new athletic director at some point anyway. I mean, I don't think there was anything to that. I think they're just trying to get a guy in place. And honestly, I mean, it's just as much a distraction for them as it is for Mississippi State. I mean, John Cohen's not coaching the game on Saturday. He's not playing in the game on Saturday. So, I mean, it's just to me, I wasn't that bothered by it. Just it goes ahead and gets that out of the way, and you have a chance to get an athletic director hired pretty soon if you're Mississippi State. Mason, are you secretly in talks with Auburn? How can we trust you, Robbie? No, I will never turn my back on you good people. I'm good where I am. I'm building a house right now. I can't leave. I don't have the money to leave. Zach H., you'd think he would have learned from Mullen's middle of the night departure and quickly prepared a statement to get ahead of the news breaking. Yeah, I really would have thought that there would have been something coming out from Cohen regarding his exit. I thought he would have some kind of statement, and he might be letting it simmer a little bit. But I mean, if he doesn't say anything, that is a little disappointing. To spend so much time here at Mississippi State and not have some kind of response on the way out is just kind of weird to me. But maybe he sees it differently. Maybe he thinks just kind of leaving and going out quietly is the way to go. Jordan, the move is tacky, but let's not act like Auburn is gaining a huge advantage from knowledge they will gain from Cohen. Yeah, there's a lot that could go into it. I don't know all the details of why he made that decision. I don't live inside of John's head and really know what's going on, but there's something else to it, I think, and I'd like to know all the details as to what all went into it. I don't. Something tells me it's just not as simple as Cohen just wants to go to Auburn for NIL. I don't really buy that. Mason, outside coaching hires, what are top accomplishments and failures by Cohen? I thought the financial situation in Mississippi State has been really good. State has a good bit of money. They did a really good job, I thought, of navigating the pandemic, which was an impossible time that nobody has dealt with before. And Cohen kind of led the charge on that. He did a good job during that time of really handling that situation. Of course, they have facility upgrades. I thought he raised, I mentioned this the other day, I thought he really raised the floor of Mississippi State athletics as a whole. With the what I would deem kind of the secondary, the non-revenue sports, soccer, volleyball, and things like that. Women's basketball was before he got in, really heading towards its peak, competing for SEC championships, and he kind of let that have some stability there with Vic Schaefer. When Vic left, that's one of the negatives of John's tenure was the hiring of Nikki McCray-Penson and then the hiring of Joe Moorhead. Those are two things that I would say were the biggest negatives of what happened during Cohen's tenure. But for the most part, I mean, you look at some of the other hires, you look at the golf coaches and the soccer coach, Coach Armstrong, and Julie Darty-Dennis has done some really good things at volleyball. Volleyball and soccer have not been productive sports for Mississippi State. Softball has been kind of, bottom of the SEC. And I thought, John hired a first-time head coach in softball, and Samantha Ricketts. She's had three really good years. And last year, she goes to Super Regional for the first time. Julie Darty-Dennis sends you to the SEC NCAA tournament for the first time. The soccer team had a great start this year. They just finished in the quarterfinals. I think the first SEC tournament win ever. So I mean, really, I think he's had some really good moments too. But there's some things that I feel like Mississippi State can do better with the new guy and or lady, and a lot of that centers around the new age of college sports, and that's NIL, transfer portal, and all that. I think Mississippi State can be a lot more modern in those outlets. Bryce, I did the Starkville NIL club for a bit, but it started to seem shady with no updates. Should the Bulldog Initiative just be the go-to from now on? Yeah, I don't really trust this Starkville NIL thing. I don't know those people. They've done several of those NIL deals across college football. I think they're in South Carolina. They've done one at Ole Miss. Not raising a ton of money. I think they get some profit off of it too. So the best thing to do as a Mississippi State fan is really go all in with the Bulldog Initiative. It's led by a Mississippi State guy and Charlie Winfield, who has put a lot of time and effort into this. It's a side job for him. It's not even his full-time job. And he basically did this because nobody else was doing anything. And I can assure you that he is going to get your money in the right places that it needs to be. And Mississippi State can now work hand in hand with the Bulldog Initiative. And I think that's going to be incredibly beneficial for Mississippi State moving forward. So I encourage you, go to the Bulldog Initiative online. You can sign up for the monthly payments, quarterly payments. However, I think you can go as low as $10 a month. I mean, if you're sitting there thinking, I'm not going to make a difference, $10 a month, when you start to really spread that out and you start talking about, 1,000 people doing $10 a month on top of, a few people throwing in $1,000 a month that are big time boosters or something, that stuff adds up. You're playing your part in helping Mississippi State. And a lot of us aren't comfortable with the way that college sports has evolved, but this is where things are. And for Mississippi State to succeed in the SEC, the best conference in college sports, they're going to have to be competitive in this. Right or wrong, kids are choosing schools now based on NIL opportunities. Mississippi State lost a kid in basketball to College of Charleston because they had more NIL opportunities there than at Mississippi State. So this is where we are right now in college sports. And Charlie is doing his best to try to get this thing going. I think you're going to start to see Mississippi State really give this thing a boost. When Mississippi State starts backing this and pushing it out, I think a lot of people that are really unsteady about this and don't really know what's going on are going to be excited about getting involved. And I think this partnership with Mississippi State is really going to help. And like I said earlier, if you missed it, the numbers have been through the roof on Monday and Tuesday since all this stuff started breaking with John Cohen. The memberships are really going up with the Bulldog Initiative. So if you feel like you can get involved in that, I encourage you to do so to really help out that cause for Mississippi State. And listen, it goes beyond just recruits. I mean, it's not even it's for the guys that are on campus. And you would be shocked to know some of the players that it has kept on campus that were thinking that they were going to go somewhere else last year. Mississippi State has saved some of those players from transferring or from going pro by keeping them on campus. I mean, what I'm thinking about too, Kentucky was able to keep Oscar Sheboy from going pro this year in basketball because of their NIL opportunities. And Mississippi State's done the same thing with some guys in baseball. So the more money, the better opportunities you're going to provide for better athletes at Mississippi State. It's no longer just about the facilities on campus. That's still a big deal, but players are looking for ways that they can be compensated at this stage in the game. That's just how it is. Justin Tidwell, what can we do to get Leach on board with growing our NIL through social media? I don't know. I mean, let somebody get his phone and tweet out a link to the Bulldog Initiative might be the best way. I just don't. I don't think that he's really interested in going all in with that. That's just how he is. I don't think he's going to change with it. So State's going to have to combat that, and hopefully the athletic department really gets behind this and can kind of overcome some of that. But it would be huge for Mississippi State to have the head coach tweeting about or talking about publicly Mississippi State's NIL because people are going to follow that. I think that could go a long way. Greg Grimes, besides Curry and Banco, who else would you look for as AD? Scott Weatherby is a guy that I think could work at Mississippi State. Obviously, has been here before. I'm starting to lean towards going after somebody that isn't a Mississippi State guy per se, a guy that's been here. I certainly think you need to go out there and get somebody that has run an athletic department this time around, and preferably somebody that has worked within fundraising. But Curry would be one of my first calls, and he may say no, but I'm going to ask him 4 or 5 times before I give up on that. There's no reason why you shouldn't shoot for the stars for an AD in this search. You're in the SEC. There's a lot of guys out there that want to be inside the SEC no matter where it is. And this is an opportunity for Mississippi State to see if they can go get a big boy out there in the athletics game. Justin, do you know where State ranks in NIL compared to the rest of the SEC? I don't, because it's hard to know that, because a lot of these places are really fabricating the impact of their NIL. A lot of places. There's a ton of schools that have said that they have these NIL opportunities. They have all this money raised, and they don't. And players figure that out once they sign or once they get on campus. That's going to create one of the biggest clusters of a transfer portal that we have ever seen this year. The portal is going to be insane because you have players that have been promised so many things during this recruiting process, the transfer portal process about NIL, and it's not going to be available for them. You make all these promises, you're going to have to back it up, and eventually that stuff comes to light. So I don't really know what the rankings are. I would probably say Mississippi State's middle to lower half of the SEC. Most of these places are going, their NIL allotment is going to line up with probably the revenue that they usually produce. The teams that have the most money usually are probably going to have the most NIL. Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Auburn. Those are going to be the teams there at the top half. Oh, what do we have? I don't know. I can see Kiffin there, but do you think talking about Auburn, do you think he may just be waiting on Saban to leave and have a shot at that gig? I talked to an Alabama guy at the Alabama game and asked him what his thoughts would be about Lane Kiffin at Alabama. And a lot of those people don't know if Alabama would be willing to hire him just because of the past and kind of, the unpredictability that he had and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know if he'd want that kind of pressure. That's a high pressure job, and you got to follow Nick Saban too, a legend. And probably the best that you're going to do is maybe compete for championships, but you look at what Nick Saban's done. I don't think anybody's ever going to replicate that. So it's going to be a tough deal to follow up Nick Saban. I don't know if Lane Kiffin would be willing to do that, but we'll see. He obviously has some ties there, having worked there under Coach Saban. I don't know if he'll be a fit or not. Oh, WESP. How much are those hires are his actual decisions versus what a head coach search company recommends? Talking about John Cohen. John Cohen was very, very involved in the coaching hires at Mississippi State, and a lot of times he was doing the bulk of the search. So especially, I watched him interview Dusty Smith, the golf coach. I was in the press box at softball, and when he interviewed Dusty Smith, so I know how involved he was. He was very involved in that stuff, very meticulous with what he did. I mean, that's one thing I'll say about John Cohen. He was the most, probably the most well prepared guy I've ever seen when it comes to that stuff. And sometimes it was too much. It was too like on paper, and not as much what's going to fit Mississippi State. So I mean, those hires were pretty heavily influenced by John Cohen. Jordan, what's the story behind what went wrong with Nikki McCray Penson? Just was in over her head. I mean, she just she kind of lost control of the team. She was kind of trying to figure out. It was, and two, I mean, I think COVID had something to do with it. It was a weird time, and you're dealing with a lot of players that you haven't coached, and you're transitioning over from one type of coach into another style. And I think her style was kind of up and down. One day she would be hard on the players. The next day she would be almost like a friend, and it really didn't resonate like it should have. There were some locker room issues that kind of bowled over to last year. They got to the point where it just was not going to work. So that was a disaster all the way around. Matthew, Cohen will still remain as part of the baseball selection committee. Yes, I believe he's still on that committee. I don't think anything should have changed there. Bob says no to John Curry. His short run at University of Tennessee was a divisive dumpster fire. That has nothing to do with John Curry. I don't blame any of that on him. That place was a dumpster fire internally, with or without John Curry. As long as Phil Fulmer was hanging around, there was nothing that he could do there. It was a mess. He's a great athletic director. I don't blame any of that on him. He's proven his worth at Kansas State and at Wake Forest. He was athletic director of the year last year. He would be an absolute monster hire for Mississippi State, I think. Preston Knight, does a new AD keep Leach if he loses the Egg Bowl? Yeah, I don't think Leach is going anywhere. If he somehow loses the last 4 games, then there's going to have to be a conversation. But I think all that does, if you lose the Egg Bowl, I think that's just going to create a lot of pressure next year for Mike Leach. It's a big game regardless. I mean, I'm thinking about what could be next year and how excited this fan base could be if you win that Egg Bowl. Say you get to 8 wins with that Egg Bowl win, possibly get to 9, and then you have that schedule next year. You're going to have excitement. It's a great home schedule. Everybody's going to be excited for this team because you win 4 out of your last 5 games. Win a bowl game, win the Egg Bowl. You have a great season ticket off season, selling those tickets. Schedule comes up. I think the schedule sets up really nicely with a lot of guys returning next year. I mean, you have a chance to take it. It's kind of like a crossroads moment. Yeah, I mean, you win 7 games with an Egg Bowl loss, go 7-6 again or whatever. Nobody's excited about next year, and who knows what happens with that team next season. But it's like that Egg Bowl is really a fork in the road for Mike Leach and his team. They really need to win that one this year. Mason, do you think we see a reform to NIL? My company has talked about, but see it as a bad investment when a player can transfer at any time. Yeah, I think you're going to start to see people at these schools when they see a guy transfer that they've invested in or a guy not work out. There's going to be people that either adjust their payments to much lower payments or they just decide not to be involved at all. I think it's going to start to go down. But right now it's at a high mark and you've got to invest in it. But yeah, the people are going to eventually say, no, I'm not going to do this. It's a waste of money. I mean, if you pay for a recruit, I mean, say a big booster pays $1 million for a 5-star quarterback or something, and the quarterback ends up transferring after he doesn't win the job, or he gets in there, loses his job to somebody. That guy's going to be scared away by the NIL. He's not going to want to be involved in that at all. So that I do think you're going to see some kind of reform. I think there's got to be some kind of legislation on it too. There's got to be some rules put in place, because right now it's just out of control. Is it WESP? Is it West? Am I going to say WESP or should I say WESP? We'll go with WESP for now. What gas station in Starkville has the best food? That Texaco on 182, they have like barbecue. They do a smoker outside every day. I haven't been there, but anybody that has a smoker outside at their gas station usually has really good food. There was a place in Louisville that used to do that as Ellis's Shortstop in Louisville. They used to have a smoker outside in a deli, and it was amazing. That place looks like it's good. I really need to go try it out. And then the 76 gas station, is that what it's called? It's over there across from where 1883 Smokehouse used to be. I went there the other day. They have a sandwich deli in there with a boar's head, like cheese and meats and stuff. That place is really good. I had a club sandwich in there. It was really good. So those places look, I mean, I'm a big gas station guy. Most of the gas stations I go to eat are in Webster or Choctaw County. I don't really, if I'm in Starkville, I usually stop at an actual restaurant. But yeah, there's some good spots, I'm sure, in Starkville for gas station food. I mean, you can't go wrong with a good pizza stick or, the hot wings, chicken wings, stuff like that. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I used to eat that every single day when I was working in Louisville at the water department. I would get that stuff at the gas station every day. Delicious. Justin, do we get to see Will Rogers next year? And if so, does Chris Parson beating out Sawyer for the quarterback job? Yeah, I mean, I think Will Rogers is going to return next year. I don't think he's going to leave early. I think he's going to be your starting quarterback next year, and then we'll see from there. I mean, you should, if Sawyer Robertson's hanging around and he's in year 4 as a redshirt sophomore, you should be, or redshirt junior. If he's still around, I mean, you should be expecting big things from him at that point. He should be ready to go. The key is kind of hanging on to him. Hopefully he hangs around for a little bit. That's tough to ask a guy to do. Asking a player to stay around for 4 years before you get to start, that's tough. He would have my respect if he does that, but especially this day and age. But I think State's going to be in good shape with its quarterbacks after Will Rogers leaves. All right, guys, any more questions? I think we've caught up. It's been such an interesting week. Big game this weekend for Mississippi State. Auburn's reeling. They've shown a couple of good things the past couple of weeks. I thought they gave up a good fight against Ole Miss. So, we'll see if State's able to come out and take care of business in this thing. White out apparently on Saturday, so wear white if you can. That usually doesn't work a whole lot at Mississippi State, but we'll see. 6:30 p.m. I think is the game time on ESPN2. David, any thoughts on upcoming men's and women's basketball? I think they got a chance to be good in both. I really like Chris Jans. The roster is going to be interesting to see if they can make some noise with that roster. I think by the end of the year, that team's going to be really competitive. It's just going to be who's going to be scoring for them is the biggest question outside of Tolu Smith. And then the women, I think that team has a chance to be really good. You should expect to go to the NCAA tournament with that group. If you don't, I think it's a bit of a disappointment. But I like what I've seen from them. Preston, score predictions for the next couple of games. I'm going to go State by 14 against Auburn. I think they can win that game 38-24, something like that. And then Georgia, I'm going to say State has a pretty good game against them for 2.5 quarters. Georgia is able to pull it out. I think Georgia by 10. I've had belief that State would play Georgia pretty well since the summer, and I still think that's the case. I definitely think that they have a better chance in that game than they did against Alabama. So we'll see what happens. Georgia is beatable, but it's still the national champions. They got a ton of talent, big and physical. State's going to have to really bring a hard hat in that one to have a chance. Also, Texas, Robbie, what quarterback physically impresses you from practices? Sawyer Robertson's very impressive. It's just about putting it all together. He's got a good arm. He's a good-sized kid. I think he's got some zip on it. I think that it's just about getting experience because so much more goes into it than just being more physically talented than other players. And he's got there's a lot of stuff for him still to learn, but I think he's got a chance to be pretty good. And I think, and to your question about who could I see being a legit NFL talent, I mean, he's probably got the biggest upside of that group. I think Braden Locke's got some pretty good skill as well. I don't think he has the size that you're looking for, but I think Sawyer's probably your best shot as far as an NFL quarterback. I still think Will's got a chance. I'm not saying he's going to be drafted very high or drafted at all, but I think that he's got a chance to be to make a roster and play a little bit in the NFL. So, all right, anybody else? Again, go check us out at 247. We have a 75% off deal. I think around $25 for a year to get access to our message boards, all of our content, obviously, all of our VIP content. And it's not just that. I mean, you have access to all the sites on 247. So you get to see all the exclusive content across the board. You can keep up with recruiting across the board. It's a really great deal. Of course, you can get free membership, I believe, still to Paramount Plus, which is a big deal too. So go check us out. That deal is in place until 11 p.m. Greg, what men's and women's basketball players should we watch this year? Tolu, obviously, for the men. And DJ Jeffries, I think Cam Matthews is having a really good start to the offseason. And for the women, Anastasia Hayes, obviously, and Drakela Jordan, I think are going to be really good. Alana Smith, the transfer from Louisville, has been having a couple of good scrimmages from what I've heard. Debrisha Poe is one to watch, the freshman from Meridian. She's been really good. I think she's got a chance to be special and compete for all freshman status. So those are some players to watch. Preston, if Kiffin ends up at Auburn, does he take Dart and Judkins with him? Well, the problem with Dart is he'd have to sit out. So I don't think he's going to go anywhere. He can't transfer again. Judkins, maybe. I don't know. That kid's been tearing up. He's been pretty good. One of the better freshman seasons that we've seen from a running back. So, all right, guys. Appreciate you guys stepping in, talking a little bit about Mississippi State with me. I've enjoyed it. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, of course. And go check us out 247. Follow me on Twitter. Check me out on Thunder and Lightning, too, if you don't do that. A lot of stuff to go follow and subscribe to, but I'd appreciate it. But other than that, hope to see you guys on Saturday at Davis Wade. Should be a good one this weekend. I don't think John Cohen's going to be there from what I've been told. So no chance of heckling him from the parking lot if you're wanting to do that. And I don't really advise you doing that anyway, but I mean, I can't stop you if you're going to. But anyway, thank you guys for checking in. Appreciate y'all. And we'll try to get back on here again next week as well. All right. Y'all have a great rest of the week. We'll catch you down the road.